for joining. It's so fantastic to see all your faces, and that's part of our purpose here, is to build community. So we really appreciate it. You should have seen a message that this event is being recorded. So if you do not want your face being recorded, please, you can turn off your camera. Welcome. This event is organized by Hellenic Innovation Network with the support of the MIT Enterprise Forum Greece and the Greek Consulate of Boston. Good morning, Simeon. Thank you for joining us today. The purpose of Hellenic Innovation Network is to provide a bridge between the Greek tech diaspora and the startup ecosystem in Greece. And so we host events twice a year. Our next event in Boston will be on Thursday, May 4th, and it will be on a life science theme with John Maraganore, Joanne Beck, and Yanis Monovoukas. So we invite you to Boston to come and participate. We'll be recording it if you want to watch it afterwards. The other big news we have is that the Hellenic Innovation Network, MIT Enterprise Forum Greece, and the MIT Club of Greece will be hosting MIT Global Startup Workshop in Athens on March 30th and 31st to bring together entrepreneurs, students, investors, and key stakeholders from across the world. So there'll be a series of tailored workshops, panels, and keynote speakers to share entrepreneurial practices that have empowered over 30,000 startups that have come out of MIT. So the goal is to connect regional entrepreneurs and global thought leaders to foster long-term collaborations and empower entrepreneurial ventures in the regional market. Hosting MIT GSW in Athens is a unique opportunity for Greece to solidify its position as an emerging global tech hub. So mark your calendars to save that date. More updates are available at gsw.mit.edu. And if you're interested in attending our event on Thursday, May 4th in Boston, you can register at hellenic.org. We have a big program for you today, so I will pass it along to Dean 𝗓𝗍𝗄𝑧. Thank you so much, Dean, for doing this.
Thank you, Marina. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're thrilled to see many familiar faces, many friends, and also make some new ones as always. I wanted to thank Lars for joining us today. I had a long list of questions, but unfortunately we can't squeeze that much in the 10 minutes we have together. But I'll start with a higher level question. You've enjoyed a phenomenal entrepreneurial journey over the years. And today in this Zoom, we're joined by many young founders or potential future entrepreneurs. What kind of advice would you like to share with them?
Well, obviously to call me and pitch it to me for their seed investment, since that's what I do now. But more seriously, look, I think the key thing is to make absolutely sure that the problem that they're trying to solve is worth 1 or 2 decades of their life. Because often it isn't. I do see occasionally, people think it's cool to start a company. They think it's the best way to make money, which truly it isn't. But it is something that can give you tremendous satisfaction. Like, so you mentioned my own journey. I helped start Google Maps 20 years ago. And I can't begin to tell you and everyone else what an incredible source of pride it is to have been part of starting something that billions of people use and that they mostly like. Still 20 years later, I can see I'm in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I'm speaking to a crowd that knows my work, which is fantastic.
You mentioned that you're actively looking for new ideas. We know you're an active angel investor. What are some of the criteria that you prioritize when you're looking at new opportunities?
So first of all, the vision, the idea has to be important enough. And you can measure that by market size, or you can measure it by the number of people it might touch, or more subjectively, I often honestly am attracted to ideas that I have some personal connection to. Sometimes it's in the space that I have experience with. So like my most successful investment so far happens to be in a graphics design tool called Canva down in Australia, where I lived for a long time. And I happen to have been a programmer of design tools back when I was a student in Denmark. And so that really resonated with me. Now, actually, I find myself more attracted to problems where I really want to learn about this, right? So like I want to apply my skills and my experience to help the entrepreneur, but if they're also, you know, a PhD in a field that I know nothing about and I get to learn, that's just as exciting. But the importance of the idea is a big part of what I look for. I also just, you know, I hang out with them in a context of a pitch or a more social setting. And I often think of angel investing as sort of, I'm the investor, I'm buying a ticket to spend time with really interesting people, professionally interesting people, and maybe help or at least learn about or be part of solving important problems in the world. And I think of, you know, I mean, statistically, we know this is true, that most likely I will not, in fact, get that money back. In fact, I will buy a ticket and not get that money back. But then every now and then, you get it back once, twice, and then, you know, in my portfolio of like 60 companies, one of them has really blown out, and it's paying for all the others, potentially losing, although there is still a good batch of them that could get there too. And then the third thing, you know, I can't talk enough about how every time I see an entrepreneur succeed, they always enter the game with this spirit. I love the term, I don't know where I got it from, pathologically optimistic. That they're just like convinced that they're going to solve this problem, which is often actually strangely, you know, combined with a deep sense of insecurity and imposter syndrome and all this stuff. But like this incredible optimism, because often, like, you know, the spirit, optimism, attitude has a tremendous impact on what actions people actually take, in particular in the face of adversity, when things don't go well, when you're at the bottom of that roller coaster. And those are the people, the optimists. Like someone, I think Mark Zuckerberg told me this once and gave Peter Thiel credit for it, if I remember correctly. And he said, look, pessimists are almost always right. Like even if you look at my portfolio, and if someone had just said for each one of them, well, that's going to fail, right? That sort of pessimistic view, they would be right more than 9 out of 10 times, right? But it's the optimist that changes the world, right? That 1 out of 10 or maybe 1 out of 50 that actually turns into a big thing, maybe even like a generationally important company like Canva. Those were made by optimists. And in fact, when Mel and Cliff, the founders, first came to me, like I remember distinctly, they were just like, so hey, Lars, we're going to build the biggest company in the world. And I said, well, you mean the biggest company in design, right? And they're like, no, man, we're going to build the biggest company in the world. And now 10 years later, they're, you know, valued at like $30-40 billion. And literally in their own way of thinking, they're like, okay, so how close are we to building the biggest company in the world? Let's see, at 30 billion, we're like at about 1%. That's pretty good for 10 years of effort. It's that kind of spirit that I find really attractive in entrepreneurs. Plus, obviously, you know, the obvious thing is, you know, it's hard work to build a company, and so you have to be willing to work hard.
Gotcha. You know, balancing this optimism with pessimism. During a recent interview, you mentioned that an ingredient often missing in the Greek ecosystem is the belief that, you know, it can be done. How do you think that mentality can change over time?
Yeah, so that is true. And you know, this is true of every, you know, look at a national ecosystem, right? Before someone has done it in that place, there is a very natural sense of, well, pessimism, right? Doubt. Can it be done here? Well, you can look at it having been done in other countries. You know, it's done in Silicon Valley, then it started happening. And by it, I mean, you could say building a unicorn. That's kind of a deflated term by now. But like building a generationally important tech company, can it be done in a place like Greece? And when I worked in Australia 15, 20 years ago, no one had done it there either. And I get asked that question all the time. Can it be done here? And I said, well, of course it can be done here. And really, literally, the missing ingredients at that time for Australia was a belief that it can be done, right? And so how do you change that? Because no one doubts that in Australia now, right? There's Canada, there's Atlassian, there's this handful of unicorns that are growing like crazy there. No one doubts now whether it can be done in Australia because now it's obvious, right? And so the best way, although not the fastest way, to try and change this is to find the people that has that ingredient, right? The crazies, the pathologically optimistic Greek entrepreneurs or not Greek entrepreneurs that happen to be Greece and like, of course it can be done here, right? And you help them actually do it, and then everyone will see that yes, of course it's possible in a country like that. And the other ingredient, and a bunch of the people in this call actually working on this now, it's like, try and get people like Mel and Cliff, who has built big generationally important tech companies in small countries, to come and tell their stories of how did that happen, what were the challenges, and why wasn't it actually any more challenging than doing it in Silicon Valley. And we're going to try and make that happen. Greece happens also to be one of the most magic places to be, in particular in the summer. And so we're going to try to use that as a lure to get people to come tell that story. And it's not going to change overnight. It's going to be little by little. But I'm convinced that Greece is on the cusp of someone doing that, building a generationally important tech company headquartered in Greece. Gotcha. And I'm going to invest in it, hopefully.
We hope so, and we're counting on it. After the successful exit of your company to Google, which became Google Maps, one of the most transformative applications and platforms of our generation, you spent some time at Facebook as one of their most senior engineers. We'd love to get your quick thoughts on the potential of the metaverse going forward, and also on a unrelated topic, but again, very controversial, the crypto space more broadly. What are your quick thoughts on these two areas?
Yeah. So look, I think the metaverse, whatever exactly it is, I'm not sure the hardware has matured nearly enough. There was some big breakthroughs around the time when Facebook bought Oculus, right? That suddenly it seemed like, well, this is actually going to work. But I don't think it's there yet in terms of like mass market adoption. This is like the hardware simply doesn't appeal yet to a mass market. And I personally, I'm an early adopter, and I bought Oculus 1, Oculus 2, and I tried them and it's cool, but it doesn't catch on with me. And possibly Facebook now has something in the lab that'll pull that off. Possibly some other company, like Apple, who's just like historically very good at hardware, that they're going to be the ones pulling it off. And so I think there's a pretty good chance that the metaverse and stuff like that, like augmented reality type applications are actually going to be similar to the iPhone or smartphones in general, in terms of this is what computers are going to be like in the future at scale. But we're not there yet, and I don't feel we're super close with the stuff we've seen. Like there's a similar step needed to, and maybe even bigger than from smartphones before the iPhone and the iPhone, in my opinion. That's the metaverse. The crypto space, so I have invested in a couple of crypto companies, but it's the thing, as an investor, I've done this sort of as a side project for 10 years, and I'm doing it as my main gig. And so like all investors I know, there's some, there are a lot of binary yes/no decisions that we make, and you get some of them wrong, right? And then you can 5 years later see how much money you didn't make or how much money you lost from making the wrong choice, right? And one of the big ones for me was that at the time I got offered a big chunk of Bitcoin. Or a chunk of shares in a company that made mining gear, and I chose the mining gear stock because the theory of the shovels. When there's a gold rush and there's a bunch of mines, instead of betting,
shovels,
you invest, you make the picks and shovels. So whatever gold mine wins, you win, right? But so it turns out that particular company didn't do super well. I'm probably going to make 1 or 2x back, but Bitcoin was $180 back then, and it was a fairly big ticket in my small portfolio. And so this would have probably, like, if I had made the other choice and exited Bitcoin at the right time, that would probably have been more money than my entire portfolio is worth. So there. my other one was not to invest in Zoom's seed round.
Gotcha.
But, yes, I didn't take the meeting. I should just say I was too busy. If I had taken the meeting and said no, I'd feel really shitty about it. Anyway, so crypto, I think it's very impressive technology. I studied cryptography a little bit back on. I have a PhD in theoretical computer science, and it's really impressive, like the breakthrough in cryptographic algorithms. But I also think when you look at the whole space, like the amount of energy, human energy, I don't mean electricity, but like human energy and money that goes into that space compared to the amount of impacts. You remember we talked about, I like ideas that, have this big impact, like the amount of impact that crypto is creating outside of the people who's working on it is really small, like really small. And hundreds of billions of dollars gone into this. And that weirds me out a little, but it feels like there's more, speculation going on. And, in fact, I would argue if I had taken those Bitcoin, I would have made all that money, great. But what impact would that have on the rest of the world? Not clear.
Gotcha.
And so the crypto companies I've invested in, and it's not a lot, but they all have the following property, that there is a non-crypto real problem that an entrepreneur thinks could be solved by crypto technology. And it might even be like, we could solve this in other ways, but crypto seems like a good way to solve this. And so, like, for example, I invested in a company that wants to rebuild the infrastructure upon which airline tickets are sold, right? And anyone who's ever bought an airline ticket, even when you're on some fancy website, you can feel how ancient the backends are that airlines use for this stuff, right? And one of the ways you can feel it is you can't like do anything with the ticket once you buy it. If you don't want to use it, you give it back and they charge you a ton of money. And if you want to sell it to your buddy, there's no way to do that, right? And so they want to try and make airline tickets work in a more modern, sensible way. These guys, it's an Argentinian company called 𝗡𝗶𝗇𝘀. And they thought, hey, look, this may be something that NFTs in particular, crypto non-fungible tokens could solve. And I think that sounds reasonable. And they're getting a fair bit of traction, even as as we're entering yet another crypto winter. So that's my crypto.
Got it. Thank you so much. I wish we could spend more time together. Hopefully we can team up for future events. For those that would like to hear more of Lars, I highly recommend you find the recent interview that 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏 conducted with Lars. It's available on YouTube and Spotify, among other platforms, and I highly recommend it. But Lars, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to teaming up for future events. Marina, back to you.
I'm very excited to meet you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really great. Nico, would you like to take it from here?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with all of you today. And wow, what a year it's been for the Greek startup and the Greek venture capital ecosystem. We have a lot to celebrate. We had some big exits recently as well, a number of new funds that were created. And we now have all the best from the Greek startup venture capital scene on this panel today with me. So excited to jump right into it. So I will ask everyone to introduce themselves. I'll be calling people's names. And this year we can try to be brief with everything we say because we have a lot of people and we don't have a ton of time. So let's start with newcomer, 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I represent the Genesis team. We're the new kids in town. We started Genesis 1 year ago in January. We've been pretty active. We've done 15 investments this year. We primarily do investments in the pre-seed space. So that's typically your first institutional ticket. Range of tickets between 100K and 300K to 400K. You may occasionally see us do a little bit of seed rounds as well, where we follow other investors, other VCs. We also have an accelerator that we just started 3 months ago, day one. It's going amazingly well. That's with very early stage teams that want to get their first institutional ticket of 120, 100, 100,000, 20. What else? I guess one particularity of Genesis is that we co-invest with angel investors. the 𝗟RCs of the world and 𝗟 specifically as well. So we typically deploy 2/3 of the ticket, let's say 200K, and then angels need to come in at the same terms as Genesis and complete the round with another 100K. So we work very synergetically with angels, and we basically feed, I guess, downstream VCs and the likes of Venture Friends and Marathon and BigPie, etc.
Excellent. Thank you, Dimitri. 𝗏𝗏, the floor is yours. Great to have you back on the show.
Same here. Great to be back, Nico. Thank you for moderating this panel. So I'm 𝗏𝗏, I'm a partner with 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗃. We started in 2018, seed fund, generalist, sector agnostic. We did 29 investments during our investment period. We have co-invested with 35 funds, over 35 funds around the world, and over 70 angels. The companies we invested in have gone on to raise more than 70 million of additional capital from foreign investors, and 14 of them have been into follow-on rounds, so Series A and beyond, with world-class investors. It's great to be back. We are seeing a lot of very interesting deal flow at the moment as the Greek ecosystem is maturing. I think we're seeing a lot of interesting things around sustainability, around deep tech, and a lot more mature founders. So more ambitious, more focused on product, more focused on execution and clients. So I'm super excited for what lies ahead in 2023.
Lovely. Thank you, 𝗏𝗏. 𝗁𝗏𝗺𝗀𝗻, you want to go next?
Sure. So great to be here again for a second time. Thank you, Nico, for moderating. So I'm George. I'm a partner at Venture Friends. So we are investing now from our third fund. We are a seed Series A fund. First ticket something between 500K and 1.52 million. We are focusing in prop tech, fintech, B2C and B2B, but not enterprise stuff. I guess for this stuff is better George from Marathon to speak, and 𝗏𝗏. So yes, third fund. We have a team in Warsaw and London, apart from Greece, obviously. And you know, we go after like big companies from Greece and abroad that they have the aspiration of being market leaders in more than 2 countries.
Thank you very much. Who should go next? Since you mentioned 𝗁𝗏𝗺𝗃, let's go with 𝗁𝗏𝗃.
Hi, Nico. Hello, everyone. Great to be back. I'm 𝗁𝗏𝗺𝗃. I partner at Marathon Venture Capital. We work with ambitious Greek founders building world-class technology companies. We manage about 100 million in assets. Typically, we put the first million ticket, and we try to get about 15 to 20% in equity. And you know, let me be brief. You can find more at marathon.vc.
Thank you. Dimitri, do you want to go next? Dimitri
Sure.
Kalavros-Wuciu.
Yeah, of course. So hello, everyone. Great to be back. Thank you, Marina, for organizing this. And thank you, Nico, for moderating the discussion. So Dimitris Kalavros here from Velocity Partners. We were the smallest in terms of asset under management fund of the equity fund period. We invested in 22 companies during the investment period between 2018 and early 2022. We started out as generalists, but I have to be honest, right now the portfolio concentration is around 3 main verticals. First being health tech, well-being, second being mobility, and third being B2B software service. And we are quite a team player because I think we have invested with most of my fellow panelists here, at least in one occasion. So really great to be back and looking forward to a fruitful discussion today.
Dimitri, that's great to hear from you, and thank you for saying it, that all of us together can do much better than each one of us on our own. So Marco Veremi, do you want to introduce yourself? And you've been one of the people that have been trying to get everyone, to be on the same team. So thank you for that.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a partner at 𝗏𝗆, which launched in 2018. The first fund was a 50 million fund, which is now fully invested in 23 companies. I think we've done relatively well. We've had 9 up rounds and a couple of companies at over 200, one over 100, and a few more over 50. So I'm pretty happy with the result. We mostly focus on companies that have some significant technology. You want to call it deep tech, you can call it deep tech, but the bottom line is some notable technology that is mildly defensible. I'm excited to also say that we are literally launching our new fund next week, 𝗏𝗆2, which is going to be a 75 million fund with a possible closing up to 100. So yeah, very optimistic so far. Let's see how 23 onwards goes.
Fantastic. Congratulations for the new fund, and congratulations to several of you that now have new funds. And what's remarkable is that most of you have raised capital not just from like European or state sources, but also you attracted like private capital into VC funds in Greece. This is like really hard to do, and it's quite amazing. So George, let's start with you, because you're Mr. Hack the Box. You had like a big win. We want to celebrate that. Tell us a bit what you saw early on in the founder, what all of us can learn.
Well, thank you, Nico. We're quite happy with the outcome at Hack the Box. First of all, happy about the founding team. When we first met them 4 short years ago, they were just working on it part-time, but they had managed already to build a global community of security enthusiasts who were spending a lot of time on the platform. I think this is rare. What Hack the Box does is actually help upskill every cybersecurity professional or just enthusiast out there. And today, such a skill is very much in need. To give you a bit more context, there are about 3 million security professionals and a similar figure of open jobs that still look for someone to fill them. So we found them, we worked. I think we had a very nice ride with the team, and now there are more than 200 people, and they just raised a 55 million Series B round, led by Carlyle, one of the prominent private equity platforms out there. So we're quite happy for the team. We're also happy about our backers who took the leap of faith to invest in us when there were very many questions about how things will work out. On our end, we just see this as a stepping stone. I think we have very many things to prove, and we expect more and better things to come in the near future, not just from us, but from everyone across the panel.
Excellent, thank you, and congratulations again. 𝗏𝗆, you're invested in companies that now everybody uses, those who live in Greece, those who are visiting Greece, like 𝗏𝗆, and also you've been trying to do the really hard stuff, like Marco and others, the deep tech. Tell us about a couple of your favorite wins that your portfolio companies had so far.
So yeah, thank you for the question, Nico. So as I said in the beginning, we're sector agnostic and have a wide range of investments. So I'll talk about a couple of companies that successfully fundraised this year for follow-on rounds. The first one you alluded to, I guess, is 𝗏𝗆liche, which does bioconversion of waste into animal feed. This is a company we seeded in 2019 and has actually gone on to raise a Series A led from Balderton in 2022. The company is doing quite well in terms of commercializing its offering. The big leap of faith we took at the time was whether this technology could get out of the lab and actually go into use cases for supermarkets, for waste managers, etc. And now they're proving their model. There's still a long way to go. As Lars said at the beginning, usually with those companies, it's not a 2, 3, 4-year trip. It's quite a long trip. You're talking about decades until this becomes mainstream. But it is in the right direction. It's using proprietary technology, is looking at the sustainability very closely, And I think we're going to see great things coming from this team in the next few years. Another win I'll refer to, which also managed to fundraise in 2022, despite the climate in B2C, is 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏. I guess that's also the one you alluded to, which does ferry connections between islands. Also very strong team, and kind of looking at the model that 𝗏𝗵𝗺𝗀 talked about. So go in and start from the Greek market, become the first player in the Greek market, and start conquering other markets as well by creating a playbook and seeing what works. So this team has obviously done very well in Greece. They're now in Italy and Spain as well, and looking at the Nordics and the North as the next step. So I'm super excited about this investment as well.
Lovely to hear, and thank you, 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗀. 𝗁𝗏𝗺𝗀, do you want to feature some of your big wins so far? I know you have a lot, so let's focus on the more recent ones, like FlexCore, like you pick.
Let's do the FlexCore. I mean, I can pick one Greek one.
𝗏𝗶𝗇𝗀, you decide what you want to pick.
Exactly, and one more international. So the FlexCore guys, just they raised a new round. It's a good example of what 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏 said. They are doing fantastically well in Greece. Like the fleet is like in the thousands, almost double-digit thousands, and they have expanded to Cyprus. Okay, Italy, it's another big market, and now they're about to hit Mexico, which is a ginormous market there. It's like the size of, it's gonna be the size of 2-3 times Greece at least. So yeah, fantastic execution of the guys. They are doing very, very well. 𝗏𝗵𝗺𝗏 was another, very good investment from us, from Dubai. Actually, it's very interesting because he started from Dubai and now is expanding to Europe. And in the latest round, Sequoia joined the cap table with us. And also another fantastic news, for us and the ecosystem was the fact that Blue Ground managed to raise money from ADQ, which is a very, deep-pocketed investor, super deep-pocketed investor from Middle East. So it's nice to be able to unlock these sources of capital. And, it's a company that everybody around the table, we are waiting, to see like as a first Greek IPO from the tech world in the US.
Fingers crossed. The more wins we all have, the better it is for the ecosystem. It's going to lift all of us upwards. Thank you, George. Dimitri, do you want to feature some of yours? 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏𝗀, FinLoop, you pick, whatever you like. Here.
Sure, I was wondering who's Dimitri is. You're
sorry,
to,
Dimitri 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏𝗺, yeah.
This is
Yeah.
Yeah, so from our portfolio, especially some of the earliest investments we made in 2019, 2020, we see both these companies moving forward in a very healthy and an accelerated way. Just to name a few examples, we set a portfolio company, this one with venture friends, where they raised their Series B in Q1 last year. They're doing quite well in 3 countries right now, active in Greece. They do have a very active presence also in Poland and Romania. And on the other side of the mobile portfolio of the fund, we have Instacar. I think we're going to have some very positive developments to share in the coming weeks as the company is moving forward in a very healthy and very accelerated manner, actually. From a more like a deep tech, health tech point of view of our portfolio, I would point out perhaps 2 spin-off companies from the UK. A big majority of our portfolio, and I believe pretty everyone's portfolio is also co-located elsewhere abroad. A great example of a successful spin-off company for our portfolio is number 1, 𝗏𝗏𝗺𝗏, that's building a 3D printing device for carbon fiber. In terms of commercial traction, they've managed to do superior work in terms of securing many commercial agreements with industry-leading automotive and aerospace OTAs. And on the other hand, we have Surge, which is spin-off of Imperial College in London. They produce a wearable device for Parkinson and Parkinsonian symptoms. They raised their seed plus round in 2022. What's really exciting about this is it started as a deep lab project, and 3 years down the line, we're just 9 to 12 months away from FDA approval, which makes us feel that we're there. The commercialization process of the product itself is also underway. So we're really looking forward to hear some positive developments from this team in the next few quarters as well.
Terrific. Thank you, Dimitri. I have to apologize because I missed out on introducing one of our speakers, Costa from Unifund. My bad. So Costa, the floor is yours. Do you want to introduce yourself, Unifund, and talk about some of your wins like FlexCore?
Costa, are you on mute?
Hard to do this, Marina, with all the titles, right? Maybe something we can iterate on in the future. All right, so we'll wait to see if Costa is going to join us. Costa, if you join, please, ping Marina or I in the public or private chat. Thank you. So Marco Veremi, you had a big exit this past year with Acquisionius. You had quite a few new awesome markups. Do you want to feature some of them?
Yeah, I wouldn't call Acquisionius a big exit, actually. It's a pretty small exit. I think we need to set our standards higher, but it's a good acquirer, Meta, no question. We co-invested with venture friends on that. And I'll go straight to the reverse of Acquisionius, actually, which is a company that is acquiring instead of retreating or selling, which is Orpheum. Orpheum, for me, this is important because I think it's encouraging to see a company that has gone cash flow positive in 3 years since we invested, is generating good money, is in the tens of millions of revenue, and is now in a position to acquire SoundMouse. So I like that because this company does really have the potential to become a unicorn, although I hate the term unicorn anyway, a significantly large company employing a lot of people. So that's one example. The other one we absolutely love at 𝗶𝗆 is TileDB. One of the things I love about TileDB is that their clients love them so much that they've become investors. So, Lockheed Martin invested in the company and first was a client. Verizon invested in the company, first was a client. And Intel invested in the company, first was a client. So, that's something that for us is very reassuring because they've used the product, they love the team and they love them so much that they've invested. So, these are the two I would single out. But as I said, we've had 9 up rounds and just listening to everyone else as well, I think, quite frankly, it's been an amazing last couple of years. If you put together all the amounts raised, all the success cases and the very notable products that have been produced, right, in this period of time, I think it's great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marco. Dimitri Marouli, do you want to feature some of your early wins? PC is hard to produce in a very short period of time. You guys have done an awesome job so far creating an ecosystem. So please, share with us.
Thanks. Difficult to pick winners at this early stage because most of these investments are around 6 months old. But I'll just mention a few out of the 15 just to showcase the breadth, I guess, of the portfolio, both in terms of sector, but also in terms of maturity. So, we have Diania in the healthcare sector. I think we co-invested with 𝗶𝗆 there. Amazingly strong team, doing very well in the US. HIN, which was just announced today, also in the US, very charismatic founder, that basically building a smart basketball hoop. Hardware, very interesting technology. Hoping to become the Peloton of basketball. We have Protio, which is basically a buy-to-rent marketplace for real estate. They have really good traction in Greece so far, and also the team is really strong there. and we have wealthyhood in the financial space. More early stage company that we invested early last year. Super strong team building a really good product, and so far having amazing traction in terms of users and MRR. Setting the expectations high there. And we have even earlier stage stuff, 𝗥𝗀𝗆, which is actually dominating the mental healthcare space in Greece so far. And a couple of investments, even earlier stage, coming out of our accelerator, day one, as I mentioned earlier. We can't announce them yet, but soon to come in a couple of weeks.
Excellent. Thank you, Dimitri. So as Marco very mentioned, the last couple of years were absolutely terrific for the global startup scene, the venture capital ecosystems everywhere. Most of the people who are working in tech, and of course the Greek tech scene. Ton of capital made it into tech startups, employment rose, ton of companies went public, big exits also through acquisitions. And in Greece, we benefited from that. We saw so many companies raise capital from funds overseas. We had first significant exits. We had awesome acquirers come in. And this helped raise the credibility of the Greek startup ecosystem, so that now we have like the beginnings of a Greek brand that people from overseas do pay attention and care about. Of course, at some point last year, the tides started turning. And as we saw, valuations have started like dropping. Companies have unfortunately started to have downsizing. And it looks like we may be in the beginnings of a new cycle. So the good news is that pretty much all of you are flush with funds. You have new funds. So you're pretty well, armed to really capitalize on this opportunity, especially now that the Greek startup ecosystem has expanded and has a number of early wins. So with that, I'd like to hear from you, what are some of the lessons learned that you've had last year, especially as the tides, have been turning? So what advice, for example, do you give to founders? So Myrto, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So as you said, Nico, like 2022 was a difficult year across markets. I think we saw less rounds globally. We saw things taking longer. So a lot of more of due diligence from funds looking at companies. And we also saw a turn to profitability. So the name of the game was not kind of growth at all costs anymore. It was more kind of growth that makes sense with kind of middle and bottom lines that also make sense. So this changed the climate quite a bit comparing to 2021 as well, right? Because you have to think about where we're coming from a year with crazy valuations, etc. Looking at kind of what our portfolio, but also other startups have achieved, I think the lesson is that first, the companies that did have a business case, a strong team, and the right traction managed to fundraise. They managed to exit when the time was right, etc. So actually the really strong teams do manage to survive in any kind of climate. Now, what we're advising our portfolio companies is to look at the cash more closely, allow plenty of time to fundraise, and make sure that the business case is there and is a strong business case, right? So it needs to make sense, in my opinion, from the very, very early stages. And reaching profitability as soon as possible and going out and solving a problem efficiently. I think the Greek startups have a benefit there because they've been used to being cash deprived and they've been used to operating in a very lean and efficient manner. So not a lot of frivolous startups out there. So I think the ecosystem overall is very well positioned for what's going to be, I think, also a challenging year, but again with opportunities.
Thank you. Dimitri 𝗏𝗏𝗆, do you want to share some of your learnings from last year?
Yeah, sure. Definitely, I will echo, how Myrto described the situation in terms of our portfolio managing efforts. So we actually, take extra time to work closely with our companies, try to understand what are the mechanics of fundraising in each and every situation, whether they have a strong case for an upcoming round, or whether we should explore an extension. Because obviously, you know, this is part of where we stand right now as a market. Not if you can have the ability to postpone, you know, your funding plans for a couple of quarters until the climate is more stable, you can do so. But I would maybe like to emphasize a bit more eyeing the earliest of the founders of the ecosystem with a case we have in our portfolio. So one of the last investments we made in late 2021, they did a market introduction. In 2022, they felt like the market traction and product market fit was not really there, and they pivoted. But the way they pivoted was unparalleled in terms of the speed and execution ability. They managed to really pivot, repurpose the program, the product, and the code in just 3 weeks' time from something into something else. So I think maybe targeting again those founders that are in the very beginning of the venture creation process. Do not fall in love with your startup. Don't fall in love with your product. Make sure there's a business case there, and make sure that while you're building this product, you can find, and in case you find yourself in a dead end, see what parts of the product can be repurposed into something else, something new, that can eventually have a better chance in the target market.
Dmitry, I like that. The advice of like not falling on your own shit is like very prescient. So Marco Veremi is somebody who's been a builder and CEO, and you've seen cycles. What have you been advising your founders?
Well, 4 things really. The first is, for those as old as I am, they might remember the movie Wall Street back in 1987, where Martin Sheen tells he's a working class guy, tells his sort of a yuppie son, Charlie Sheen, who works for Gordon Gekko, says, you know, don't judge people by the size of their wallets, you know, but judge them by the quality of their character. And that's pretty much true of companies, you know. I mean, I think we got a bit carried away with valuations and unicorns. And it's become abundantly apparent that you need to judge companies by the value of their products and you know, their stickiness to customers, the value they bring long term, not short term. So you know, the first lesson is yeah, forget about unicorns, which in any case don't exist anyway as a word. You know, unicorns don't exist, right? So it's a stupid word. Let's stop using it. The second thing, the second lesson is, so, you know, basically valuations are transient is the lesson. Valuations are transient. And here today, gone tomorrow. The market lost 80% of its value, the listed entities. Second, I think, is the rediscovering the value of frugality versus growth. You know, getting the mix right. You cannot be too frugal and slow, but you can't be too fast and grow on other people's money. You know, you have to find the right balance, and the balance is there to be found. Some companies have found it during 22, but this will be the theme for the next probably couple of years at least. So, you know, frugality mixed with growth is my second sort of lesson learned. The third is labor market volatility.
Right.
You know, secure your best people and make sure you hire the very best people in terms of new hires. Because what we've seen with the labor market, and it's been very disruptive for startups, is the wave of resignations when the things were going well. So, you know, this arrogance of people thinking that they can treat companies like, you know, horses in the races. So, you know, whichever company is not performing immediately, I jump to another company and try and monetize my options as fast as possible. And then, of course, resignations are now followed by actually people being laid off. You know, 18,000 laid off at Amazon, 12,000 laid off at Salesforce. You should all see this, and I see this as an opportunity. Great people will be available. And startups will become more attractive because this will be a period of sowing seeds and not harvesting. So, it's a good time to think about people. And the final point is, don't believe the hype. Do not believe the hype. Look at what happened with crypto and FTX, and look at what happened with the metaverse. The promise of the metaverse. So hype is something that usually goes well with bull markets, and it goes horribly with bear markets. So yeah, this would be my lesson.
Marcus, thank you for touching upon all these points. So I'm going to take down notes. I'm going to tell my partners we're not investing in AI. This space is too hyped up. And the unicorns indeed do not exist in our portfolio. Sadly, many of them have turned into camels. That's how we call them. Have a lot of cash. The companies are doing okay, but several of them are not going to be the next Stripe. So 𝗁𝗔𝗵opoulos, you've seen from your portfolio quite a few companies, from overseas. So you got the warnings early. So what advice have you been giving to founders as you were getting the warnings early from your overseas portfolio?
Pretty much, I think we have not given them many. We didn't say to them anything different than what has been already discussed. I think there is not a single point that I will disagree. Myrto, Marcos, really hit it right. But here we are now in a situation. I mean, this thing. I just want to say that it seems that there is still a lot of money out there, despite us being in a very difficult macro environment. Still, some investors, they are willing to pay some crazy valuations. Because, I'm sharing this totally anecdotal from a recent discussion we had a portfolio company. They decided to raise, they have like 30K MRR. They get the first, after a lot of discussions, they get the first 2 term sheets at the 15 pre, and they got another 6 term sheets just after one call and some WhatsApp messages. So, despite being in such a difficult environment, I guess some investors, they are still willing to, do big tickets. Obviously, it's a solid team, solid product, but still the traction is not there for this type of numbers. But what I'm trying to say here is that now, we as a fund, we are focusing we have always been focused on that. Now we are super focused in the quality of the team and actually to have like a tangible product. And this type of, if you manage to hit those two, these companies, no matter what, they're going to survive, they're going to find their way, to navigate these difficult times.
Thank you so much. 𝗁𝗔𝗵opoulos, you've been investing in the Greek tech startup ecosystem for what, 12 years now? Pretty much since the beginning of like the millennial founders, and you guys have knocked it out of the park with community building overseas. So as you were seeing the tides turning in 2022, what have you been telling founders? Or what have you guys been doing differently internally at Marsden?
Yeah, thank you, Nico. We've been doing this for some time now, but at the same time, we have so many things to prove. I think, especially for Greek founders, 2022 was pretty much another day at work. So, there's a lot of experience in being frugal, not overspending. I think also as a DNA, we're not good at overselling, we rather undersell. So it is much more easier to, let's say, recalibrate and try to make the most out of the new reality. Actually, it's not a big departure, as for example, it is for US startups. So as long as you focus, let's say, on the next feature that you ship, your next hire, the next customer that you close, I think value creation, is taking place, and then you don't really care about valuations. They're going to follow. So from that perspective, I think not much really have changed. What has changed, though, is that there are some thousands of people across our global community that have now accumulated a lot of experience in building products, converting customers, and growing companies. And I believe this is the greatest asset for our community. And we strongly believe that it is going to continue, creating dividends for everyone.
Lovely to hear, and thank you for the humility. Dimitri Maroulis, can you share with us some learnings from your experience investing in Singapore that could be applicable as the tides are turning in Greece and in Europe overall?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Nico. So I think in Greece, what I see compared to the Singapore ecosystem is we have a lot of, we have very high talent density, right? Obviously, there's a lot of good talent in other ecosystems, like in Singapore, but they're drawing from large populations, like in India and China, etc. So the denominator is very high. That's why you also have a high numerator. In Greece, I think the density of talent is really good, right? So that's definitely something that puts us in advantage. Same is the diaspora Greeks, who are people that operate in larger markets overseas. They can think globally, they can build products for larger markets, and they want to be in connection with Greece. They want to have ties with Greece, right? Like set up a shop here. So that's very encouraging. Another similarity, I think, which we haven't fully leveraged, is Singapore and Greece have very similar economies in terms of size of the economy, right? Similar-ish. Singapore has half of the population, obviously much higher per capita income, but order of magnitude is the same. But they have managed to become a hub for a region, Southeast Asia, which has 750 million population. And I think Greece can become that for the region that we are here, right? Southeast Europe, East Mediterranean. There's many countries around us, much larger markets, also high growth, I think. And we have the potential to make Greece. And I think that's the vision we should all strive for. How they've managed to do that in Singapore, I think, creating a very safe place for companies and very easy, making it very easy for companies to set up, for capital to be based there, and for companies to hire great talent. And I think we can do this here as well.
Dimitri, thank you. This is very good. I appreciate that. So let's move on to the next section, which is about predictions for 2023. So it could be as silly sounding as Panathinaikos will win the championship, or it could be relevant to the body of work. So let's kick it off with 𝗁𝗁𝗍.
I think 2023 is going to be pretty much the same as 2022, with the benefit that expectations are now recalibrated. And this applies, across the market, from investors to founders to employees and so on. And I think this is very liberating, because now we can move on focusing on the right things. So in short, this is at the same time, I think here in Greece, we have the benefit of having many funds now being active and also being more experienced. And I think there is space for, great stuff to follow.
Excellent. 𝗏𝗏?
Yeah, I always hate making predictions, because you start off and then something happens, like a war, for example, and then you're completely off. So I won't make one, but I echo what George said. I am quite bullish in general about the market. I think we're all, as investors, learning as well, and we've acquired so much experience from investing, from participating in boards with other more experienced investors, from leading exits, follow-on rounds, etc. And I think this will start showing as all of our portfolios mature and are at the stage where they're either growing, they're going for exits, they're going for IPOs, or acquiring other companies. So I'm excited about those things in 2023, and let's see what everything else comes to.
Fabulous. Dimitri Kalavrou-Oussiou, what's your prediction, or what are you looking to fund in 2023?
So I think maybe taking and highlighting the point Marcos mentioned earlier about talent reshuffling. I think there's going to be a lot of people that will start new ventures this year, and I think this comes after a year in which, especially aviation and pre-seed investments in Greece, they hit an all-time low, at least for the last 5 years. So just to give some numbers, last year we monitored around 60 investments, 60 something investments, out of which just a third was around pre-seed and seed, which is, the pre-seed and seeds of 2022 are the potential Series A of 2025. When we're talking about enlarging the ecosystem and growing the pie, we really need to also focus there. I think there's a lot of talent that's going to move towards the scale-ups, which means better quality of people employing or being employed by the ones that will really drive forward the whole ecosystem, but also a new wave of founders, first-timers, most of them, that will enter the market. So on the fundraising side, I think, again, focusing on the pre-seed seed level, I get a lot of interest and excitement from a lot of angel investments, family offices, people that were less willing, in this part of Europe at least, to get involved that early in this area of the alternative asset class. So I think we need to unlock this part. We need to unlock, because the next wave of the startup, we're going to thrive as a country in 5 years from now. We'll start now. This is not, well, it's partially wishful thought, but also as prediction for 2023. More newcomers, more fresh capital, and new projects to develop.
Very good, thank you. 𝗏𝗏, prediction or what you're looking to fund in 2023?
Predictions. Okay, like the first, which I think is happening, is we get a very binary situation right now in terms of investments. So I think early stage will still work pretty well, and anything after that is unlikely to work well, because quite frankly, you can buy a treasury bill for 5%, or you can buy a very safe bond these days for 8-9%. So I think that's the private equity market is probably gonna suffer a lot, but we're not, I hope. I think it's a good time for us. The second, I think, is again talent. A lot of significant talent will be unleashed into the market by the layoffs and the insecurity of big tech. So we'll find amazing people, and it's an opportunity to repatriate or at least work with great people who no longer find companies like Google as sexy as they did. And the third thing, I think, is really to do with just scientific innovation. Was kind of a niche 6-7 years ago, deep tech, you want to call it. This has found its rhythm, no question about it. I mean, if you ask me, the two major breakthroughs in the past year or more, or maybe a little more, was AlphaFold and GPT-3. So these are both projects that have come out of years of research, right? These are not some smart idea that came about and was done in a couple of years. One took 10 years, the other took 7 years. And this kind of deep tech finding its rhythm, I think is going to be a major theme in 23, 24. And it may be the first year that some of the big players get disrupted. I mean, it's the first time in my lifetime where I think Google is in trouble. Seriously, I think that if instead of searching you can actually get answers, this is looking interesting. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very exciting year.
Love it. Thanks for being so bold with your predictions. It is indeed, quite of an exciting time. On the talent front, we at GC say that we have 2 business lines at the very early stage: liberation capital for those people who need to get out of the overvalued big tech and get started with startups, and then first-time capital for first-timers who kind of are oblivious of what's going on, but they are ambitious enough or blissfully ignorant and want to get started. So, 𝗏𝗏, what are your predictions for this year?
Normally, I'm a little bit bearish, but somehow I wouldn't say I'm super bullish, but I'm a little bit optimistic. I don't think it's gonna be like a terrible 2023. I think that it can be a little bit better of 2022 versus 2022. By no means, it's not gonna be like a huge party, but it's not going to be as bad and as, at least this is my opinion, as people are afraid it will be. Maybe because everybody's super prepared, and the whole thing about inflation and macro headwinds has already sunk in, and we have made our plans. So yes, 2023 is going to be relatively a good year. In terms of interesting spaces for us, I will say companies like Lars mentioned before, that they are dealing with structural problems that have been, it has been done up until now in a not so good or ideal way, and they can go after them. And another exciting space, and for me personally, has to do with energy. So whatever has to do with, saving energy, being smart grids, or being smart about how you use energy overall, this is super exciting. We have seen a couple of companies across Europe. Unfortunately, it's not only us think the same way. So the price was ridiculous. We have managed to squeeze in though a couple. So yes, these things we find super exciting for 2023.
Fantastic. Thank you, George. Last but not least, Dimitri, do you want to share yours?
Yeah. So I think you guys said it already. This is the best time to start a company. Simple as that. I think next couple of years is really the best time to start, because the correction has been done already. There is less uncertainty about the economy right now than it was last year. And I think it's going to be even less the year after. There's lots of available capital, dry powder, as you mentioned, Nico, and as Marco mentioned, there is also lots of good talent that's is being shaken by all the uncertainty in the tech world, and is looking for alternatives, alternative careers, right? So what we're looking to fund is very early stage teams. We're looking forward to unlocking the power of pre-seed and accelerator that we built in Greece. And I think that's been a relatively underserved space in Greece. I think now we have a very solid accelerator that can give out 100, 150K tickets to teams that are just starting, 2 or 3 founders, even if they don't have a fully functional product yet or revenues. We're looking to take those types of risks and fund really early stage companies.
Thank you. So we had a little bit of a spicy question from the audience. 𝗓𝗏𝗃, what is the biggest investment that you all have regretted passing on? This is one that, whoever is brave can answer. If you don't want, or you've been investing for a short period of time, you can ignore. So if we have any volunteers, please.
We passed that paper.
Mine is
which I don't know.
So let's go with George 𝗏𝗏𝗀 first. I saw a few hands.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. Sorry. So long story short, we jumped on 𝗏𝗏𝗃, which is a company that helps with corporate expenses, credit cards, issuance, etc. We were offered to invest, I think, around 40, 50 million. To our defense, though, at that point, the revenues were not going that well, so it was shrinking. There was also the tech was tied with Wirecard, so there was also this issue happening. Still, we passed. The race now, even though Marcos hates this expression, last round was at unicorn status. So tough luck.
All right, Dimitri Marouli.
Yeah, well, I have a bit of a fake answer because we initially said no. That was like 3 years ago, a company called Xanpol in Singapore. That's the previous fund, right? Not Genesis. Again, we're still early to do that, to have regrets, I guess. So it's in the crypto space. We said no to them, came out of our accelerator, but then they raised money from another accelerator. And then we said, okay, let's look at them again. So then we ended up investing at 1 million valuation, and now they just raised a few months ago at 400 million valuation. So I think that was a good move. We actually invested out of FOMO.
So hold on, you passed on it, and then you invested at 1 million. What was the initial valuation? Like
no,
50K?
it was 1 million, right? 1 million.
Okay,
that was same terms.
Okay,
and
so this doesn't count.
Well, we said no. I think
It's
it was a
humble
big lesson
bragging,
learned,
man.
right? I know.
Okay, good. Excellent. Very good. So Marco Veremia, so you raised a hand.
No, I was just going to say a couple of companies. One was like, unfortunately, off the brief of the fund, which was 𝗏𝗿𝗄𝐿 that I like a lot. And we didn't invest because we thought it's not compatible with the fund. But, you know, I kind of regret that. And the other one that I do regret is because I find it really interesting, but is Better Origins, which at the time was not called Better Origins. But I'm glad that in both of those cases, Greek funds invested and will do really well. So, you know, yeah.
That's awesome. Anyone missed out on Viva? I know this company has been around for a long time, but this is clearly one.
Harris doesn't offer opportunities for anyone to invest ever, so don't worry. No regrets.
Okay. Hopefully the next one that he does then. All right.
Maybe I'll share something as well. So I actually very much regret not convincing a company to go for product. So it's one of the companies that I looked early on. They were doing services and they were never convinced to go into a product mode by me or anyone else that had seen them. They got acquired eventually and they're building an amazing product now for someone else. So this is one of the big regrets, that I think there were a bunch of companies in the previous era, which were started in 2010, 2015, that were not bold enough to go out and say, oh, okay, we're gonna seek 5-10 million, burn them, build a product and go and kind of like change the world. And I think these opportunities are now on the table. So founders are bolder and we're gonna see more things like that, so, yeah.
Thank you. So we're pretty much at time, and in classic Greek fashion, we ran a bit over time. So maybe we end it, you know, on a positive note. So what can each one of us do so that we can grow the pie for everyone on this panel, and of course our attendees to benefit from? So Dimitri Kalavrogousiou, we're going to kick this off with you.
Yeah, I think one thing that really will characterize the market moving forward for me is co-investment. So we need to do more together. I mentioned this before, at the very beginning. I think we need to understand that by providing more capital and by bringing more people, diverse people on the cap table, it's a win-win for everyone. You know, to me, this is how we grow the pie, essentially.
Excellent. This is fantastic advice. 𝗏𝗄𝗄𝗄𝗏.
Yeah, I think we just need to do our job well. So raise more funds, allocate them, investing more great founders, and, you know, help them go further. That's it. You know, continue doing it for, you know, more time, and more fantastic outcomes are going to happen.
Absolutely. The best is yet to come. So I see Lars raised his hand. Lars?
Look, I just wanted to this question. A bunch of people on this call actually are starting to get together to try and build an event in Athens, like an annual tech conference, similar to maybe Web Summit in Lisbon or Slush in Helsinki. Because I think a bunch of people have reached the conclusion that we really need to grow the scene itself in order to grow the pie. And I think Web Summit has done a fantastic job. And I would argue that Lisbon is further ahead, same size country, but further ahead. And I think Web Summit played a really big role in that. And so I'm going to actually, if it's okay, reach out to the people who's not already involved, because I think we should do this all together. We have a small group of like 4 or 5 people that have time on their hands to make it happen. If everyone here can support with names of people to invite and ideas and so on, I think we can make something really spectacular happen.
Very good. I think we can totally do that. Reach out to 𝗏𝗺𝗀𝗃 𝗏𝗏 because he has a lot of expertise on this topic. So
yes, so he's 𝗏𝗺𝗃 is one of the people who is.
Oh, good. Glad to hear that. That's fantastic. 𝗏𝗏?
Yeah, I would add to what was already mentioned, just be more open with our network, our contacts, people that we have worked with before from the startup world, from the investor world, from different regions and countries and stuff. And I think that also comes with confidence. The more confident we are about our portfolio, our standing, our performance, etc., the easier it is for everyone to just be open and kind of see the opportunities of working together.
Very good. 𝗿𝗶𝗺𝗃.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fantastic panel, so people like cover most of the points, so there's no point repeating. I would just say, just be patient and resilient, because it's not like gonna have like a fantastic outcome, a great exit every month, every quarter. Unfortunately, we're not there yet as a maturity of an ecosystem, but definitely, we need to look where we were 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, where we are today, and this will show us the way forward. That a lot of exciting and promising things are bound to happen.
Thank you. Marco or Dimitri Marouli, if you have anything to add, please feel free. Now's the time.
I'm always focused on one thing, which is talent. Always. You have to spot it, which is not easy. You have to attract it, which is also not easy. And then you have to nurture it and reward it. If you do this well and you do it at scale, and we all do it, good people create even better people, and so the ecosystem grows.
That's right. Absolutely. I think this is it for now. Thank you all for the attention. We appreciate you joining us today from wherever you joined. Marina and Vasily, thank you for organizing. It's been a pleasure to have you grow the pie with everyone involved here. And then Dean and Lars, it's excellent to hear your questions or remarks respectively in the beginning of this panel. So the best is yet to come. Καλή χρονιά, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody. And apologies that Unifund was not able to get on. But thank you, everyone, for participating. It was great to see all your faces. Hope to see you all in May, and in March in Athens, in May in Boston.
Thanks for organizing. Thank you very much.